welcome everyone to another episode of Talk IES, where this time we're speaking about technology solutions during the pandemic. I'm very excited to be speaking with Craig Kemp, owner and EdTech consultant at Ignite EdTech in Singapore. Hi Craig, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Richard. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor.
Great, brilliant, thank you. So thanks for giving up some of your precious time today. How have you been these past few weeks and months with the craziness of the pandemic? Singapore started off pretty well, and then it got bad in the recent months, right?
Yeah, it's been an interesting time, as it has for everyone. You know, it's living in Singapore now for the past 8 years. You sort of get used to the way things roll here and the way things work. And you know, when COVID came around, all sorts of challenges were thrown at us, like everyone else globally. But I think the Singapore government have done an amazing job in managing the crisis and, you know, getting us to where we are now with almost no community cases. And so things are getting really great. You know, I'm still outside wearing my mask every day, trying to get the kids outside to do some exercise and get those sorts of things. So the new normal is upon us, and it feels good, actually.
Good. So before we get into the questions, Craig, please tell our audience a little bit about your experience and some of the schools you have worked at and some of the schools you're currently working with.
Yeah, I'm originally from New Zealand, so apologize for that accent in advance, but I've lived in Singapore now for 8.5 years. My wife and I moved here, 8.5 years ago, so that we can experience the world, you know, come and travel, come and explore, come and lead, come and teach and educate. My previous experience was as a teacher and leader in a small primary school in Dunedin in New Zealand. And we moved over here to a school called Avondale Grammar School, which was a K-8 school, Australian curriculum, where I was a teacher and a ICT leader and a middle school leader. And then I moved to Stanford American International School here, so a large 3,200 student school. And for the past 4 years in my teaching career, I was the Director of Technology and Innovation, supporting the development and integration of technology across our large school and, of course, within the community. In June last year, I left that position and started up my own EdTech consultancy company with the intention of supporting more people globally. You know, when you're working in one place, it's hard to help more people. And that's what I wanted to do. So now I work with schools and EdTech companies all over the world to, you know, provide gold standard educational technology consultancy to help them thrive.
Great. Thanks, Craig, for that. So what would you say are the current trends in EdTech globally, and particularly with international schools in Asia?
Yeah, it's certainly, like I said before, a really interesting time, and in particular for EdTech right now. You know, I've worked with international schools all across Asia, into Australia, private schools throughout Europe, and it's a really challenging time, but I think there is just so many opportunities for growth and development from educators and EdTech companies at the moment. You know, prior to COVID, there was a huge shift towards the importance of connecting, engaging, and, you know, learning via virtual forms in companies like Flipgrid, for example. And they started to add more and more tools to their product to support this in an easy to use manner for kids. So, you know, the large scale trends we're seeing in EdTech globally right now is, I still think, the development of VR, AR, mixed reality, so now virtual, augmented, mixed, which just allows teachers to adapt and change their learning experiences to make them more engaging, authentic and interactive. And that's something that's sort of come out during COVID when we're in remote learning situations. How do we position ourselves to make sure our learning experiences are engaging and that our students are actually learning and developing along the way as well? You know, the rise of artificial intelligence or AI and machine learning, which I think's, you know, transforming how we learn.
Sure.
And I think over the next 5 years, that's going to continue to develop and particularly push into education. Because I think it's going to help personalize learning, but also change, you know, those day-to-day learning experiences for students and teachers all around the world. You know, analysts expect machine learning to play an important role in the next few years, offering support for tasks, you know, that might require more time, energy, training for teachers, administrators, all of those sorts of things. So Another one for me is wearable technologies. I think they are going to
Right.
increase in use over time. I'm sitting here with my Apple Watch on right now, and I can do just about everything I want with that Apple Watch without any other device with me. But in saying that, Richard, I mean, one of the critical elements that's become really evident throughout the recent lockdown period for me is equitable access to devices. And I just feel that ministries and ruling governments all over the world need to ensure that kids have equitable access to devices. And that's just not our learners, but that's our families as well, because that learning shouldn't be impacted because the learner doesn't have equitable access to the tool. And I think Singapore, where I am right now, is a perfect example of a country with an innovative approach to device access, with their recent announcement that all secondary school students will be given a device by next year, which to me is just such an incredible and fast action to this debate that I really hope more countries follow suit on. And it's just an exciting time. The work I'm doing with international schools in Asia, I think there needs to be more of an investment in strategy, not just jumping into, that best ICT solution or technology that's come out. Schools need to strategically plan and think for future sustainable success. And that's sort of what I see at the moment as being the key areas.
Yeah, great. No, thanks for that. And I mean, as a global leader in the field of EdTech, what are the biggest challenges that international schools are facing during these challenging times in relation specifically to education technology?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I appreciate that comment. I'm excited about being engaged with schools all over the world and supporting them in all areas of their EdTech journeys, especially during these times. But for me, I think there's probably three key challenges that I've sort of noticed among international schools over the past few months. The first one being that schools often over-purchase tools, devices, and under-invest in people and human resources, which sort of means that technology becomes unsustainable. And it happens everywhere. And it's happened for a very long time. Schools need to audit their current provision for EdTech and ICT and have help to identify those areas that's required to develop and thrive post-COVID-19, because we're not going to be here forever. Number two for me is schools have been thrown in the deep end over the past months, and they've had limited time to plan for that success. And as a result, most of the schools that I work with and that my colleagues and friends work with have done their best, but their best hasn't included that strategic planning for short and long-term success. And, I think schools should be spending more time now. Now's the perfect time to create that new normal. What does that mean for us as a school, and develop a plan for the future? That includes human resources, devices, policies, procedures, a plan for the development over time. And the third thing is, and I've mentioned this already, but an important part of EdTech plan is equitable access to devices. And schools often simply get this wrong. And most of our international schools are private, some for profit, some not for profit. But schools often think we need to be a one-to-one school because that's the best thing we need to do to be competitive in this environment. But that's not necessarily the case. And a lot of the work that I do with these schools is saying, hey, let's go back a step here and think about strategy. Why are you putting these devices in? And is one-to-one the best position for you? Right. Don't base your tech decisions on what the school next door is doing. Tech decisions have to be context specific and suit the unique needs of your people and your community. So that equitable access to devices is important, and it must be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. You work with international schools all over the world, particularly in Asia, and you're currently working with a new international school opening up in Singapore. What would you say are the key areas that schools need support with, and how do you help?
Yeah, I've been working with this new startup school here in Singapore for the past 6 months as their ICT and EdTech advisor and consultant, supporting them in all decision making, from learning management systems to information systems to platforms to hardware to policies, procedures, and everything in between, including hiring of ICT teams so that they can be sustainable into the future. And I'm so happy as to where they're at, particularly in this challenging time. Imagine opening a new school when your leadership team can't even meet each other face to face. It's an incredibly trying time, and the school has just excelled in all areas here, and it's been an honor to be a part of it. You know, we've gone through everything that's context specific and evidence based, and I think that's a really important part of this as well. One of the key areas I always stress with schools is why. You must be able to justify your decisions, whether it's why I'm going with a particular device, or why I'm going to get that app or program, or simply why am I hiring or not hiring someone to support EdTech and ICT within our school from an educational learning lens and not just a technical lens, which often is where schools fall backwards. You know, and when you dig a bit deeper into schools' strategic plans or schools' plans, like I have the pleasure of doing, you know, EdTech and the provision for it is more and more important. And it's easy to find those gaps when you dig into it, because most schools don't really cover them. So from my work with international schools all over the world, and particularly here in Asia, the main areas that they need support with are auditing their current provisions. So one of the things I do is myself and my team, we provide a full audit service to schools where we come in and we talk to your people, we ask questions, and we look at the human resource provisions, but also look at the hardware and the software, and investigate policies, procedures, strategic plans in relation to ICT and EdTech. And most schools don't know where to start. So coming in and being able to provide that's a great starting point for many schools. And sort of the next thing that schools are wanting help with and needing help with is that strategy, you know, that why and that longer term plan. And schools often forget about strategizing when it comes to technology as well, you know, purchasing tools over a long time frame, looking at staffing, resources for ICT and EdTech. You know, and my team of experienced educators come in and help support you in every element of strategy development and support. And the last thing that I'll mention, and not the only thing we do in support, but, you know, is professional development. And professional development is done very differently in schools all over the world. And I know, Richard, you've been in many schools and had support with many schools around the world. And everywhere you go, it's different. You know, the approach depends on the context of the school. And when schools plan their internal and external professional learning, ICT and EdTech is often one of the last things actually that's put on the list, because it's not high on the totem pole. And I just think right now it needs to be prioritized. It doesn't mean you need to spend more money on this, but it means you need to be more strategic about how and why your teachers learn about technology and its use within your school. You know, using internal resources is totally possible if it's a well thought out plan and it's put in place. So as a company, you know, Ignite EdTech, we have a team of experienced educators. It's not just me, it's many people, and I'll be expanding on that over the coming months and sharing a little bit more about our team all over Asia to support schools' needs in providing you with a bespoke and context-specific solution to anything and everything you need when it comes to ICT and EdTech in your school, even if you don't know what it is. And I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle too, is when you don't know, ask for help. There's a huge community of people out there willing to help and support.
Thank you. That's really helpful advice for our audience, Greg. I mean, is there a, you know, it's a sort of a parting gift. Is there a piece of technology that would you say that hasn't been invented or is not yet there for schools to do effective online learning? Or would you say, looking particularly at schools in Asia, they've got all the tools available now?
Yeah, it's a huge question, and something that, you know, I do a lot of interviews and chat with a lot of people, and it's one of the questions that comes up quite often actually. And I always say, like, I honestly don't have an answer to it. I think that we are in such a luxurious position where we live right now, not just because we live in the physical area of Asia, but because we're in this world where technology has been built around us to help us thrive and grow. And I just think it's not right for me to sit here and say, I think we're missing this or missing that, because I genuinely think we've got what we need in our hands if we go about it the right way. You know, there's companies all over the world going out of their way to help us be successful if we're willing to step back a little bit and let technology help us. So, you know, Schoolbox is a perfect example of a company that's going out of the way to help and support with that. You know, other companies like Education Perfect doing everything they can to help connect teachers to a product that helps not only save you time, but helps you be more efficient and helps develop learning goals. So when I think about a learning solution, I think it's context specific, and I think we've got what we need. It's a matter of laying everything out and finding the places and tools and technologies that will help us be successful now, but more importantly, into the future for everyone within our learning community.
Yeah, I say we have got a wealth of tools and resources at our disposal, and it's as you say, schools definitely have to be more strategic about educational technology. But I'd love to say, Craig, I hope to see you next week or next month or next semester face to face, but I don't think either of us are getting on a plane anytime soon.
Unfortunately.
But I want to thank you so much for your time today. There have been great words of wisdom, and we wish you well, and we hope you and the family stay safe there in Singapore.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
Great. Brilliant. Thanks. Take care.